ST was a 68,000
68,000. It is.
processor.
It still exists.
Well, I know
wait
it-
for the eventual rise of Atari to come back.
So, you know, besides Atari video game consoles, they had home computers. The 800, 600 XL, that was a nice little unit.
400, 800, 800 XL, 65XE, 130XE, XEGS. I've got a stack of them for the museum someday.
Jeez. I know where that museum is. But yeah, the ST was their higher end one. It was to compete with the Commodore Amiga line.
And I suppose now a phone out of any random person's pocket could have do both.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But you know, for something like the Amiga back in 1986, 87, doing video toaster stuff for video production and graphics and text. Yeah.
Video toaster.
That was for video production and graphics.
One of the first systems to be able to do video overlay.
Yeah.
You mean like for rendering all that fancy eye candy in Avatar?
Well.
For Babylon 5.
I mean,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's better. That's a good way to put it.
When I was stationed in Lodges, they actually had an, what did Video Toaster run on?
Amiga 2000.
They had an Amiga that did all of the video work for the TV station there on the island.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty powerful.
It was powerful stuff. When I was stationed in the Azores, the Air Force TV station there, they used an Amiga running Video Toaster to do all their video editing and prepping their stuff.
Who made the video
So
toaster?
your local video channel.
Right.
That was New Tech that did the video toaster. What do they do these days? TriCaster. So it uses a TriCaster.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's kind of a little, they stayed kind of in the game.
Yeah.
Because they had so many TV stations they produced for the old toaster. So a very natural progression for them to keep moving upwards. I mean, they're still PC based on a lot of their stuff. But,
Great, now I got the phrase little toaster stuck in my head.
well, now you put it all us. A lot more remains in your head now.
Well, not mine.
Tonight, Kevin is going to talk about KVM. And Kevin, where are you working?
I work at Hewlett Packard
Oh, that's the HP.
since the HP.
Cool. Awesome. Well, take it away.
Okay.
And then the very rest of the PD.
I'll give you some background about myself before I get started. I've actually been following the OLUG for a few years, but have yet to make it to a meeting until tonight.
The perfect timing.
Yes, it is, since I'm presenting.
Exactly.
Again, I work for Hewlett Packard. I'm in the Enterprise Services Division as a technical consultant. I work from home, and I work an ungodly amount of hours when I'm not traveling. That's why I don't get to a lot of meetings. So, the kind of work I do is virtualization based. I do assessments for our clients for data center migrations, virtualization, and consolidation. Most of the time it's a company that contracts HP to move their data center into ours. So I have to look at everything they have, determine what's needed to get them into our data center. And at the same time, usually refresh their hardware to something new, virtualize, consolidate, whatever needs to be done. So I spend a lot of day looking at spreadsheets and writing reports, but not TPS reports.
Did you get that?
Did you get that? All right. I've been using Linux since Linus was still at the University of Helsinki writing it. I take it you were in the Air Force? I retired 13 years ago. I did 20 years in the Air Force. I was stationed in England when Linus was at the university. Most of my Air Force career, I was a Unix sysadmin. And it's funny you should mention Motorola 68,000 systems. The first Unix workstations were Motorola 68,000 based. Very, very powerful processor for its time. Linus wrote the kernel back then. There was no Linux distribution. You downloaded the kernel from the University of Helsinki's FTP server, and then you downloaded the GNU utilities and rolled your own. I can't tell you how many hard drives I toasted. Lilo, in its very early versions, would tear up a hard drive. X Windows could fry monitors, literally fry them. The old CRTs, if you drove them too hard, it'd smoke them. So, yeah.
I think you can still do that if you had to.
If you had
If
to,
you
yeah.
had to,
Well, like,
technology marches.
You'd have to really try these days.
I mean, like if the display data panel connection in DDC doesn't work right, you can
I'm pretty sure it'll.
manually select a.
Or on an LCD screen, if by giving it too much power by accident, that's a hardware failure.
Yeah.
One of the little internal components not working right.
So the early days of Linux were kind of fun, to say the least.
Like Fortress fun.
Today I'm going to talk about KVM, which stands for Kernel Virtual Machine. And if you're running a fairly recent version of Linux with a kernel that's newer than 2.6, then KVM is built in. You can virtualize with just a quick install of Virt Manager, which is a tool to allow you to manage your virtual machines. Today I'll talk about Virt Manager and OVIRT, which stands for Open Virtualization. It's kind of like Virt Manager's big brother. It not only lets you manage virtual machines on your own system, but those on other systems as well. Kind of like VMware. Okay? As I said, KVM is kernel-based virtual machine, and it is, you'll find there are two types of virtualization engines. There's the hardware layer, which KVM is a part of, and it is a loadable kernel module. If you do an ls mod on your system and grep for KVM, you should be able to see it. You have hardware-based virtualization and para-virtualization. Para-virtualization are things like VMware Player, VMware Workstation. What can I think of the Sun one?
VirtualBox.
VirtualBox. Those are para-virtualized hypervisors or virtualization engines. This is a true hypervisor. It runs on the kernel, on the hardware itself. You get true hardware level performance with this type of virtualization. So it doesn't have to go through the OS. You can run multiple virtual machines. Your limit is disk space, CPU load, and memory. Okay? The more memory you have, you'll find in any virtual environment, memory is going to be the biggest constraint. The more memory you can throw at it, the more virtual machines you can run. KVM is open source, free. Anybody that wants it can have it. Virt Manager and OVIRT. I'll talk about OVIRT. OVIRT is an open source virtualization project to compete with VMware. It's very, very open source. It's feature rich, not as feature rich as VMware, obviously. VMware's been around for a few years now. Overt's only been around for maybe 2, but they're catching up.
And I've heard people say that feature rich is a synonym for bloated. Is that true?
Feature rich is a term that means you've got this many features compared to this guy's got this many features. It's ambiguous.
So it can be a synonym for bloated software.
It does include high availability, live migration, storage management, system scheduler, and you'll find that if you've heard of Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, it is based on Overt. Now, Red Hat does contribute some of the added features they develop into Overt back into the project, but so does SUSE, so do other vendors.
They're being good community citizens. So, yeah.
This is more of an enterprise type product. I've actually have commercial clients using Overt as opposed to VMware, mainly because of the cost. VMware has gotten outrageously expensive. They've got a market and they've got it right there.
How many CPUs do you got?
Virt Manager is a desktop-driven virtual machine manager. Now, before I said you can manage the virtual machines on the system you're running on, you can actually connect to other machines with Virt Manager and manage their VMs as well. But it's not as feature-rich as Overt. But if you're running on your laptop or your desktop at home, Virt Manager's the way to go. There's a lot of overhead here. Not so much performance-wise, but just getting the thing up and running and managing it. Overt SMB or enterprise environments supports multiple host computers, just like VMware. So if you have 3 or 4 desktop machines or rack mount systems that are available, the host side of this is very lightweight to install. The ISO image to install an Overt host is like 200 megs. Very, very small. You don't need much of a disk at all. In fact, slap it on an old 32 gig SSD and run like a rake you know what. It does have enterprise features. Virt Manager is designed for a single machine environment. Can support multiple hosts, but it's not as robust. Overt just came out, well, it's coming out with version 3.2. Most of your distributions right now have 3.1. 3.2, VDSM stands for virtual, I forget what the D is. SM is storage manager. So it's got quite a few different components to it. The storage manager allows you to manage not only your ISO images as a repository to install your virtual machines, but also the volumes where your virtual machines are stored. Okay, they could be SAN-based, fiber channel attached, iSCSI, or local disks. And up until version 3.2, if you deleted or removed a virtual machine, its disk went with it. But now you can keep the disk around in case you need it. It does support templates, so you can spin up a template. Let's say you've got to create 10 or 12 Red Hat virtual machines. You create one template, Once that's done, you do an initial install, create a template from that, and you spin off the rest of them like that, and all you gotta do is change the host name and IP address.
Now, is it using that template, is it just doing note to this format? Or is it actually taking the snapshot and running from that snapshot instead?
Cloning it.
So it's cloning it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's got, if I go and delete the template, this will be fine?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
They've also added support for storage domain live upgrade. I haven't really played with that yet, so I haven't been able to dig into that to really figure out what exactly they're talking about. It probably has to do with the fact that you can have multiple storage domains. And they do come out with new versions of Over quite frequently, so that's probably related to that, where you can upgrade your version of your storage domain without having to take everything down. They've added support for Windows 8. Everybody loves Windows 8, right?
Yeah, just like the IRS?
Yeah. Live snapshots, smart card support,
Really?
and the certified cloud providers. So you'll find that I know it works with Amazon Cloud, and I don't recall off the top of my head who else it works with, but I do know it works with S3. Uses some newer encryption formats, just like VMware memory overcommit management. So you can overcommit the memory on your VMs, which means you can over allocate. Let's say you've got 8 gigabytes of memory. You can actually tell your virtual machines or set them up to use 12 gigs. And you won't run into a problem until they all try to use that 12 gigs. Then you got a problem. But this is a common feature. It's been in VMware for a while.
How does it handle that if you have machines that say,
You'll see every one of them peek over to the red, and it just won't allow them to allocate anymore.
so it doesn't adversely affect them anyway?
Other than them not being able to allocate more memory.
Okay.
Is that, they kind of add that though, because just need to shift from just a single virtual platform to a cloud platform, or those machines that are being more heavily used just automatically be moved to a different host or actually more memory.
You need the overcommit?
Yeah, so it detects machine 6 is using 8 gigs, or, so let's move that to a different host.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
I mean,
As long as you have an additional host to move it to, and you have the policy set up to do that. Now, you can either set that to be automatic or on demand, whatever, or manual. It does have quotas.
what
Get
sense?
my head in the.
Don't worry about getting your head in the shot.
And it now can allow you to plug and unplug network interface cards, virtual cards. Okay.
The quotas, what do you mean by that? Quotas as far as what goes?
Disk quotas.
Just quotas? Just for the virtual images?
Yes.
Okay.
They've added some features to the user interface to make it a little easier to use. It looks a lot like VMware.
I like the vSphere concept.
Yeah, Virtual Center. can change the network while it's running. This was interesting. Before 3.2, if you looked at your guest VMs in the user interface, you could see where you'd assigned virtual NIC to him. You could see which virtual NIC you assigned to him, but you couldn't see his IP address. You'd have to log into the system, the virtual machine, to figure out what his IP was. Now they show it. It's kind of rudimentary, I think.
Now, when you're saying they can dynamically change the network, is that the IP or the MAC address?
Say that again?
You're changing the MAC address or the IP where it says users can dynamically change the network when running virtual machine without unplugging?
Actually, don't you mean it jumps, you can jump it from network A to network B without a reboot of the system?
Yes and yes. You can modify the network parameters as well.
Okay. So I guess that would be similar to like hot plugging USB network adapter into a regular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Does anybody that doesn't know what ILO is?
I used to.
Yeah, say integrated lights out.
Integrated lights out management allows you to, a rack mount server has no display. So the way that you get into that server and see what's going on is through the integrated lights out management. It's usually a web interface. And with that, you can manage the server's physical characteristics. Look at his NICs, look at his disks, things like that. And you can also pull up his console.
And all you have to do is pay to enable. The hardware manufacturer?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not like a concentrator like a KVM where
It is, but you gotta pay a couple $100 to enable it per server.
Is it a one time?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true. By default, it's there. It's if you've got a Windows OS on it, you're not able to access the.
And that depends on the manufacturer. IPMI interfaces, like for super micro motherboards, those you don't have to pay, but
Okay.
HP makes you pay for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So they've added support for ILO power management. So you turn off the server, reboot the server, suspend the server, whatever you need to do
Through over.
through
This-
over.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
An optimum configuration, you do not need these, but I can tell you it helps. DNS server, because when you set this thing up, you're supposed to give it fully qualified domain names. And if you don't, it's a really bear to manage it. And actually, unless you're on that local network, you can't manage it. Because the way they've designed it, it's really difficult to get to it through just IP addresses. And a directory server. It does support the 389 directory server for Red Hat, and it does support Active Directory. And then those are some places where you can get overt. There's an overt live ISO, bootable. You can run that sucker up on your laptop without erasing your installed OS and play with it. There's an overt node ISO. Now what this is once you have overt live running or a full overt implementation on a server, and you have another server you want to play with, you can boot up overt node and he automatically becomes another host for your overt main host to utilize for virtual machines. Does that make sense?
Pixie boot?
I'm sorry?
Is that a Pixie boot? So when you boot up overt node, it'll Pixie boot and become managed under overt live?
Doesn't even Pixie boot. They
Moves off the CD.
talk
and
across the
CD
net.
The
Yep.
OS of the CD says, I'm looking for a work manager. He pops up and says, there I am, and you're good.
Well, through the overt web interface, You say, hey, I've got another node. You click on the button to add a node, and it'll go out there and look and say, oh, look what I found. Do you want to add it? And they also have nightly builds if you want to really play.
Down to the second.
Now, Virt Manager, this is nice because if you're running a Linux on your laptop or a desktop at home, you can play with virtualization here. Virt Manager mainly works with KVM, but it also works with Zen and Linux containers. Does everybody know what Linux containers is? Anybody not know? Okay. Have you heard of Solaris containers?
I don't know what container, any container is.
Okay. A container in Linux is kind of like running VirtualBox almost, except it's not a whole OS that you're running. When you set up a Linux container, it segregates part of the operating system, and you can tell it how much memory, how much disk space, and how much CPU that you want to set aside for this container. And what it does is it creates a wrapper around this and protects it from the main OS. So let's say you've got a program you downloaded from the internet and you think it may be kind of iffy. You can create a Linux container and run it in there, and it's kind of like a sandbox.
So it's like a little matryoshka doll, or however you pronounce that. It's all inside of it all.
It sounds like essentially a chrooted area. That
There
you're
are,
playing
there are
with.
some limitations to LXC though. You can break out of LXC the way you can't break out of Zen or KVM.
Correct.
I mean, it's not really well designed for security standpoint.
Yes, true. But it's a good start. Linux containers hasn't been around that long either. Maybe 2.5, 3 years. Not too long. And it doesn't get as much development or emphasis as KVM or Zen. To install Virt Manager, it's a simple command. Yum or apt-get install virt-manager. Command line interface and a graphical interface. Graphical interface is much easier to use than the command line interface. Got a Virt install, Virt clone, Virt image, and Virt viewer. Virt viewer uses VNC to give you the console of your virtual machine. I think you can use Spice as well. If anybody's used Spice before. Spice is kind of like VNC, except it's a little bit quicker, and you also get audio through it.
If you use it, if you control it, do you control the universe?
Virt clone will allow you to clone an existing virtual machine once you have one created. Different than a template. That's what the interface looks like. And I really wanted to give a demonstration, but as you can see, I'm running on a Surface Pro, and I can get Linux to boot, I can get it to install, but I'm having a bear of a time getting the boot code to stick to it.
Surface Pro, isn't that stupid Windows 8 tab top or last letter?
Speak your
or whatever?
mind.
Yeah.
You're speaking of the RT. That's what you're thinking of.
So could you get around the
Surface
EFI?
Pro is a
Is that the
full
problem you're having?
Windows
EFI
box.
boot load blocker mechanism?
It's creating the EFI partition So I'm getting past it. I actually had it installed once. I had Fedora 18 on it, but it got corrupted, and I tried 3 different distros today and just couldn't get any of them to stick.
Yeah, if I should make that easier.
Yeah, well,
Right.
protections and such as it is.
It was Red Hat that, they purchased the key from Microsoft or something.
Don't even
And they
need
will
it.
have to-
The Surface Pro allows you to turn secure boot off. So you don't even have to have the key. You only need the key if secure boot is enabled and you cannot turn it off, which a lot of newer systems do. But yeah, that thing's a bear. It runs Windows 8 great, but just having a bear of a time putting Linux on it. So this is what the virtual machine manager looks like, and you can see here he's connected to localhost, which is the machine he's running on. And he's got a QEMU not doing anything. He's got a test VM that's shut off and a test VM here that's running using 2 gigs of RAM and 6% of the CPU. It's new button to create a new VM. It's a real simplistic interface. There's not much to it. It's very easy to create a virtual machine with this. No, it doesn't. You click new, you tell it what kind of virtual machine you want, Windows, Linux. Yes, you can run Windows within this. You can run Windows Server if you want. You tell it how much disk space, where your ISO image is located at, and click finish, start it up, pull up the console, and you can watch it go through its installation. It's really straightforward and fairly easy to use. The longest part of it is waiting for the install to finish. Why use KVM? Well, more efficient use of your hardware. I mean, how many people are maxing out even their laptops all the time? Most of the time they're sitting idle, surfing the web, reading email. What was once a single Linux machine can now host multiple virtual machines. It's a low, no-cost solution to virtualization. KVM is open source and free. Virt Manager is free. Overt is free. And the base requirements are met with any recent distribution of Linux. All it takes is the install Virt Manager. That's it.
Does this do PCI pass-through?
I'm sorry?
Does it do PCI pass-through for, if you have a video card you want to pass through to the?
No.
So the only way you can do that, I mean, no way you can get access to the Windows console via DNC or.
Right.
Like added cards, like communication cards.
Well, you can, with Zen, you can pass through anything to a VM directly. You get direct access to it, so. I know a lot of guys, that's what they want to do. They want to run a Windows box, but they want a gaming machine, and that's usually.
Interesting.
Would you do pass through with that, like, there's something I can play with, it's me.
Yeah, I think right now the only thing you can pass through is USB.
There's a project on Kickstarter. Somebody wants to launch a telescope in a space that's about this long.
I think there's one where somebody wants to put a Linux computer up there too.
So
Yeah,
they're
they're-
already doing that, with the space station.
They're gonna
Well, Oh, yeah.
base station.
There's actually a company out there that'll build you a satellite and launch it,
Yeah.
real cheap, and they use off-the-shelf parts
Oh,
and modify it.
microsats. This guy doing nanosets a while ago was like $200 you could set up a Arduino sized box.
Well, this outfit will do,
Yeah.
big packages, but they're all Linux.
But you have to wait for everybody to go at the same time to
Oh,
minimize
you
the
can pay to
cost.
have it launched. Find somebody, there's lots of private companies that are exposed. Or maybe you just wanna have satellites in your layer.
So I need to at least start.
But have you looked at, I mean, I guess they asked you this, and you did a phone call. I guess I'm wondering, if there's overt, vert manager, but Red Hat also has their OpenShift, OpenStack, Red Hat Cloud, CloudForms. Will this stuff be replaced by that, or is this becoming what that is?
It's kind of like part of it.
A little bit different because the open cloud, OpenShift, open forms, they're giving you a public cloud. This isn't a cloud, okay?
Right.
This is just virtualization engine. Now, open cloud or OpenStack will work with KVM, Xen, and Linux containers.
And VMware, vSphere.
Correct.
Amazon.
VMware, yeah, right. So, you know, those cloud solutions are going to use a virtualization engine as well as other components to give you your cloud infrastructure. Because it's more than just the virtualization. It's the management, it's the storage backend, the networking backend, all of it. And the main thing the cloud gives you is, one, the ability to manage it yourself, the ability to spin something up quickly and take it down quickly without having to go through a vendor.
As far as the network goes, you can bind a virtual NIC, I assume, to any interface in the box.
Yes. Now what they recommend is a separate NIC for your management interface, just like VMware, and then another NIC for your virtual machines. But they can both be on the same NIC if you only have one.
Can you access iSCSI volumes from within the KVM instances?
Yes. Yep.
Not your own twice.
No, you could. Really bad.
Now along with that, you can, your storage backend for your virtual machines, where the virtual machine disks are stored, can be an iSCSI volume
Sure.
or SAN volume, as well as your ISO images can be on an iSCSI volume.
Yeah, just, one of my partners was working on something the other day, he wanted more space on the box without having to take it down. Just
Yeah.
want amount of volume, you know, bring it
Yeah,
up.
iSCSI is just access through the network, so as long as you have a network path to the iSCSI server.
It's been a problem in the past with some of them. You happen to know if you can run a FreeBSD instance for KVM?
I think so. I wouldn't see why not.
We've run into some issues with that in our Zen.
Hmm.
It'll run it with a single processor, but as soon as you throw a multi-processor kernel in it, it starts
Yeah, I've heard that.
doing weird things. And, yeah, they're shut off all the offloading NIC, the virtual NIC too.
To run FreeBSD or?
You have to run a FreeBSD instance within the virtual, within FreeBSD, you have to shut off all the offloading, because it's a virtual interface that's connected. to-
Right.
I think it shows up as a RE, real tech type
It's trying to access hardware layers of the NIC
Yeah,
that it
it'll,
can't
it'll run
see.
for a little while, but it'll actually work your box, the whole thing. So,
Even the other machine.
yeah, well, even the, hypervisor, yeah.
That doesn't sound so safe.
Yeah, you would think.
Like one of the things that I've heard a few times about when running a guest on VMware is it actually runs faster. Because the device driver's been optimized for VMware now. Where do you, like, if you were to take the same hardware and run KVM and VMware, and then the same guests on top of it, do you think we'd see much of a difference solely due to device driver optimization?
I don't think you would. If you're talking about just plain vanilla and no added features that VMware has, just running a VM, I don't think you're going to see much difference.
I know from my personal experience, it was even keel when running stuff in the virtual environment versus running it on hardware.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about comparing it to VMware. I've heard a few times that running Microsoft SQL Server actually run faster on VMware because the device drivers or something are optimized.
The disk drive, that's a lot of it. For the virtual disk, or optimized for VMware.
Yeah.
I've run into that, where VMware actually runs faster. It's odd, have you noticed though that when you do the install under KVM or almost any VM, it actually runs faster, the installer, than on
Yeah.
hardware.
They actually, Windows XP is great booting your VMs.
I mean, just the install, it goes with that.
And I think that's partly due to the fact that it doesn't have all that physical hardware to scan through.
Yeah, oh,
Windows spends a lot of time looking at the hardware on your box.
well, you wouldn't think that it would make a difference, the installer, it's still gonna sit there and look.
But I suppose like if you're walking the PCI bus on physical hardware, you're physically having to wait for something to respond.
Yeah, that's
right.
If it's,
In a virtual environment, it's all right there.
Now, from what I've seen, it looks like Amazon's running Zen.
Yeah, a very, very modified.
Yeah. It's their implementation. They also have their own Amazon Linux. Something that should be
The microwave.
yeah. I've only done a little bit of Amazon.
Will they let you run image for free, as long as it's under 720?
I was in a class about a year ago, and I had some machines running, and I thought I had them shut off, and they were charging me like 80 cents every month for just having the image there, and it wasn't running. I deleted the image, and that took care of it. It was just the allocation of was what was being charged.
I thought there was a plan that gave you like a free instance,
Oh.
you still have to pay for the storage.
I don't know.
but they have like totally different kinds of storage now. One of them
Yeah.
is a lot less expensive.
That's Glacier,
That's what.
but that's only for long-term backup storage.
24-hour access isn't great for OS.
We have a couple of instances running for our backup DNS server. Shuffle around, do whatever.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hey, can you boot out your,
I don't think it's working if you're asking him to boot Linux on it.
so we can see what the, I don't know if they even show where you can turn off.
Oh, you want to see the BIOS setting, how to turn off the,
Oh, yeah, I can show you that. Well,
You might, maybe it won't work.
it's probably not going to output the video.
not in the mirror mode at least.
Have you looked to see if there's a firmware update for that? Like, maybe it's a firmware problem?
Yeah, they've come out with one firmware update so far for the Surface Pro, and that's it.
So I'm not totally familiar, is that an actually a Microsoft hardware thing, or is it HP?
It's Microsoft.
Yeah. I actually looked at one of those and decided because of some of the problems, walk away from it for a little while until I could figure it out. So I'm not current Windows.
We have, in fact, the person that was in there earlier, we're about to swap his desktop out for a Surface Pro. He has to support himself, because we don't support Windows 8.
Yeah.
We just finished Windows 7 2 weeks ago.
You done away with all of them?
No,
Those-
mostly all XP as well. Ideally, it would be great to have just a browser, 'cause that's what everybody uses. We don't need anything super powerful.
Some people don't need anything super powerful, but then there's people who do.
It depends upon your users level. We're a technology company, but there's a lot of
You know, we have these HP tablet PCs that have web top on them, that can boot instantly into what looks like a Linux operating system. That's on, must be on the motherboard.
yeah,
But it doesn't have remote desktop in it. It'd be great if it had our desktop in it, so that when Windows goes down, they can still our desktop into something. But it's not something you can modify.
maybe a flash drive. Oh, it's at the BIOS.
Yeah, well, what you see of it, I mean,
There's
there's two
not
options.
much.
There's two options.
Nope. It'd be funny if all it said was yes and no. Those are your two options.
Never
That's
used a
it.
mouse in a BIOS before.
Oh, there was some 386s in the early 90s that had a gem desktop for the BIOS.
Yes, I remember those. Gem desktop.
It was sort of like, there's no acceleration because it's a very basic mouse driver.
You do it EFI ones.
Yeah, we had some machines at UNO.
I'm sure
that,
I was trying to like cancel
with
it out.
BIOS was PIX.
Hmm.
PIX operating system.
That's one way to see it.
Well, he's been running two displays, so the video card's probably doing it.
And then most of it's controlled through the volume button, so your volume up and power to USB boot.
Oh, boots off USB.
Oh,
So,
really?
so you can boot from the USB, and that's how I install Linux. I hook up a DVD, or like the very first thing I do,
Multi-core processing.
the very first thing I do, if anybody's interested, when I install Linux on this,
The 16.
is I boot CloneZilla from a thumb drive and clone my Windows 8, the whole SSD stored on my NAS, and then I boot from CD-ROM and install Linux. That way when something goofs up, I just boot back on CloneZilla and slap the OS back on it. CloneZilla is great. If you've never used it or heard of it, it's a great way to take a snapshot of
Any
your
of these laptops.
So you have CloneZilla working with Windows 8?
Yes,
This is bit by bit.
work with anything. It just
Yeah.
takes a snapshot of the whole hard drive.
I mean, I was just,
It'll work with partitions too.
because some
You can
people
either-
have problems with it. Do you have to disable secure boot? Well, you probably would. Does
Yeah.
boot go into it?
I've got secure boot disabled on this all the time.
Which makes you question what they do on that.
Well, at least they gave you the option to turn it off.
Hey,
Right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
The,
Well,
If
I
you-
mean,
if you
it
give it
should
to
be
your
a
mom,
certificate authority separate
in
from
this scenario, if
Microsoft.
you give it to your mom, would you leave the script boot on? Probably. At least comment on it.
well, the Surface
I
RT,
gave it to my mom, yeah, the water.
you can't disable
Shock
secure boot.
We have mom room.
don't ever buy an RT.
But it would just be fine. I mean, if
Views
it
are
was
not,
a certificate
views
of authority
expressed
outside
here are
of
not the
Microsoft,
written
it's
line
fine.
of HP.
You get these signs.
Actually, I'd love to have HP's little convertible tablet, but it's using a, oh, what chip is that in there? That lower end Intel?
Adam?
It's not even an Atom.
Really?
Yeah, it is an Atom. But Linux, it's not supported on it yet. You can't get it to boot.
Oh,
That's weird.
Otherwise, I'd
I
have
thought
one
Apple
of
was
those.
still using the x86 chipset, or x86
It is.
instructions. Oh,
I
they won't
trust
support
me,
it.
I've looked into it.
Okay.
I don't give
Kevin?
much of a discount. I don't get much of an employee discount, but it's enough to make it worth buying one of those.
Yeah.
It would work.
I got my bash script thing.
I saw that. It was still here. I just erased it before the meeting started.
Really?
Your note. Let me tell you, this thing keeps anything. You can still see some words on here. It just like sucks it down.
And
It's
the longer you leave
crazy.
it on there, the harder it is to get off.
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily I had some this stuff.
Expo off.
Expo Clean.
Okay, I've got a question. I got a proposal in to give a talk at the next LinuxCon in September on rsync.
Ooh. Rob was doing all sorts of that.
Yeah.
If you guys would like, I could give that here before that.
That would be
We'd
cool.
love to do videos on rsync.
When is that?
rsync,
Well, when is the conference that you're going to?
September, it's in New Orleans.
It's like later in the month.
That kitty looks
I
like
have
it's
to
been
look.
smoking weed.
Okay. Because I wouldn't want to like record it and then have it available before you actually give it.
Right.
So
How about October?
October would be good. Aaron, you're in August, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, yeah, but would you want to practice before you?
Oh.
No, I wouldn't need it. I've already given it twice within HP. It's actually on migrating Linux servers using rsync. I ran into, let's say, a special circumstance on one of my projects. Normally we use tools to do our migrations, like PlateSpin, or HP has a tool as well. But this particular client, a mining company in Brazil, had some older versions of Linux, SUSE, version 9 and 10, and PlateSpin wouldn't work with it. And they wouldn't give us any downtime except for the one weekend when we were doing our migration. The servers had SAN storage up to 2 terabytes. We had a very slow WAN link between their data center and ours. And we couldn't do a lift and shift. So it was move the operating system and data to a new data center, to a new piece of hardware. And none of the tools would work with an older version of Linux.
So you're migrating stuff. So
Hello?
You do P to V all the time.
Would you turn
P to P,
it on for me?
P to V, V to V.
I don't know how that turned out. Not on the camera.
So the only way, and I couldn't use Clonezilla
Runs the
because the
It runs the
hardware
camera.
that Linux was running on in the client's data center,
That's okay.
they had ILO, but they didn't
Alright.
have it connected.
Thank you. You don't have to log in. You just have to turn
So
it
there's
on.
no way to manage the server
Without going.
Okay. Thanks.
without physically going there. And I'd already done 5 trips down
Okay.
there.
Thank you.
And I wasn't about to go
Bye.
do another one, just to do a migration over a weekend.
You know, thanks to
So I
you,
found a
I
way
don't have annoying
to
sounds
migrate
from
using
some video
rsync.
game stuff in my head.
The whole
Uh-huh.
server.
That's what I'm here for.
By any chance, they're doing TV?
Abby,
They're doing-
that up the,
Saw some
Oral
articles
Ferry from that.
having to do with
64 Zelda
physical.
game.
It's also the name of the computer from Serial Experiments Lane.
He basically, I don't know if this would work under like Symptoms.
the brand of
or
computer.
Linux enabled. Well, he didn't really
It's
specify.
a wild show.
He just
Well, I
basically
just know
cat it out.
Nabby has the name that drink that won't shut up.
SDA one. While the machine was running, brought it up.
Hey, Mike, you can climb ladders.
I catted it out over the network.
I've done that with DD before.
Yeah.
Inadvertently. I didn't do it on purpose. I was just astounded that it actually ran on that.
So why you have a live machine boot? It's up and running, people are using it. You could cat out, net cat out.
Yeah, now, but
Watch out for ball handles.
that was on a machine that was very idle. Now, one of my partners did it on a SQL database. She was running SQL, and it just, when the image came up, it was just corrupted as hell.
Yeah.
So,
And that'll work on a LAN. But I was going across a WAN, and the throughput was horrible.
Right.
We're talking about Brazil, okay, their infrastructure is not the best.
well, then you add in all the latency.
So you're trying to virtualize it in California, it's currently in Brazil.
I was going from the client's data center in Brazil to an HP data center in Brazil. But we're going from northern Brazil to southern Brazil. And it's not like the US or Europe. The infrastructure down there is horrible for internet.
I remember a story from, I think it was in Sysadmin magazine. They were in Brazil and they were supporting machines, but traffic was so bad, like if they had to go fix a machine, it was 4 hours across town and then 4 hours back, so it was an 8-hour day to go over there and re-image a machine. So what they did is they used something similar to Gonzilla, where they had an image stored on the hard drive, and whenever their machine would have a problem, they'd say, put this floppy in and reboot. And then when it tells you to, reboot again. And that's how they cut out all that time of driving across town. So, go ahead.
But you did this live migration of the Linux machine first.
Yeah, that's a very interesting presentation. I can look to see that.
Now, I've done it with snapshots.
OEM snapshots.
And then did a DD on the snapshot, and that worked.
Yeah, we looked at that too, but that wasn't gonna work. But what we had.
And, while we're talking about snapshots, when you take an LVM snapshot, it's basically everything you write to the disk after that is, if you take too many snapshots, can't you have your disk structured in such a way that it's just totally unoptimal?
Yeah, well, yeah, because if you use too much space on the VG that's present, you fill it up. I've actually come close to doing that before and caused problems.
Like the machine will slow down tremendously, it still works, it's slow.
Oh no!
Because you took a snapshot.
What's, oh no.
Unable to
No.
open video device.
Usually it'll, in the past it didn't manage it very well. Now what'll happen is if you have a snapshot
There's
sitting
supposed
out
to be
there,
a camera somewhere in the
it
building?
allocates more space, it'll just delete the snapshot. LVM works properly, but in the past it didn't. It would do
This is 2 weeks ago.
funny things.
Watching somebody steal your trash.
I don't really like using snapshots, so I avoid it.
No, going to work.
As well as I think they should.
Thank you, where this is going.
The concept, was really good.
So this is this is a presentation I'm working on for later this year. Is doing zone mining. This is just a Logitech webcam sitting in a window.
You thought he was gonna get.
I thought you were gonna take out the trash can.
Oh, I thought maybe.
Oh, you thought
When I saw
my
your
own viral video, huh?
Yeah. What? That ruined it.
Well, let me tell you, I deleted the video. I deleted the event from previous, but I had the trash company come by. Went to grab the trash can, and I had the recycling too close to it, and it spilled the recycling, and it jumped a frame, and the trash truck was driving off. They never picked up my trash that day. I had it on video, but it's just something I'm playing with.
I've got a video
Well,
security
shame on them.
system, and I caught a wild turkey walking up on my porch. live like out in the boondocks.
Really?
Yeah, my mom came in, she said, you have funny cracks on your front porch. You go out and look, and I said, that's a turkey. Run it back, sure enough.
So that's
Wander
just a
around
truck
there.
driving by. So I have it matched out that it only monitors this area.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun to play with. It's a little frustrating. Amazon has these FOSS cams. I don't know if you've seen them. They're all a little self-contained. They have pan and tilt and all that jazz. Like $85. Wireless, wired, and it says it works with ZoneMinder. You just have to point the URL to it. I've put the URL in a browser. It works great. But it doesn't show me anything on the display. It gives me just like a blue screen. And I think I need to update the firmware on the camera. I haven't done that yet. You have to actually register on their site to get firmware images. It's sort of an odd thing. But they have some pretty good cameras. They have an outside night vision camera, 30 feet, or 30 meters, excuse me, infrared, for something like $110.
Are those PoE?
I don't think so. It would be nice if it was. Although you can probably use an injector
Well, yeah.
and do it that way.
I hate running power to cameras.
Yeah.
Bad enough you gotta run it.
But it's cheap. Extremely cheap.
Is this outside your house? How much?
Yes. That's the front driveway.
I mean, no, do you have it mounted on the outside?
No, it's just sitting in the window. That's one of the Logitech ball cams, the older ones.
Yeah, I tried to do that, but all my windows have screens on them. And all it
Oh.
wants to do is focus on the screen.
Yeah. The screen is on this part of the window. It's a sliding window like this. It slides across.
Right.
So you can see
What was the other one you were talking about? You said the, what, $80?
the FOSS cam.
Yeah. I gotta get something to monitor my kids this summer. My wife's idea.
There you go.
Awesome. Okay.
If you wanna see one, the Omaha Maker Group has a couple of them at their location,
Yeah.
84th and L or whatever it is.
But
Those
it's
actually work pretty good.
pretty inexpensive. I'm sure there's a Chinese concern that makes all these, and they have a whole bunch of different names. But I think FOSSCAM is actually on the Home Depot site as well.
For what they are, they work pretty decent.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be high def. If you pay more, it'll be 720. You know, the levels go up. But it's
Yeah.
fun to play with.
They have two-way audio. I can yell at the kids from work.
Yes,
That's
you
what
can.
I'm working on mine is getting the camera on my front porch so it has two-way audio.
That way when someone gets up, you go, what?
So I can tell them to go away.
Yeah, you have to put an added audio input jack, which can be used for external microphone. So on the back side of the unit,
But it's got a speaker in it.
Oh, so you have to add your own.
yeah.
That's too bad.
That's okay. I guess I can set it up in the house, hook up a little miniature speaker to it.
Are these IP66 rated or does it say?
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I said one.
But I mean, there's 1,582 5 stars and only 210 1 stars.
Thank you.
Do not install the software CD. Log into the camera and immediately turn off DHCP. Give it a fixed IP. Report internet IP by mail so it can tell you it's mail. So there's lots of little things that you can do with it. I just wish that I had it working yet. Oh, wait a minute. Green means it's working, but it's black.
Oh, do this, John. Do the same thing, but start Firefox, whatever this is, from the command line. And it'll probably tell you the JPEG frame is correct.
Well, it actually has unable to open video device. So that's
Yeah,
the
but I bet it'll tell you a lot more about the error when you launch Firefox from the command line. Which you should have this in its own separate profile anyway.
Oh yeah, sure. See, now I just stopped the service. Quick cam 5500. Says video 0. Now, the program motion itself is enough to just run the camera by itself. But the zone minder does a lot more for you. Okay. So it changed video devices between reboots. So how long does it take for it to catch up? Here's where you set your source, the port number, path. You can do RTSP or HTTP. The path is for like the FOSCAM, where it's something specific. So it's actually got part of the CGI script to use it. There we go. That's live.
Your trash is now.
That's Thursdays.
What do you advertise?
That's the roofing company who's going to come by and fix my roof.
Just say, can you come have somebody go outside and wave?
Well, if there's a wind, you can actually see the trees blowing in the wind. I don't know what the bandwidth situation is like right now.
So how many frames per second is it doing, you know?
0.83. It supports the ability to ramp it up if it detects motion for that given source. So primarily ZoneMinder is just collecting the information from various cameras. It's like the FOSCAM is its own self-contained unit. But to do a webcam on another computer, I'm just using motion and just exporting that as a live feed and then just picking that off. That was the only tricky part about it. I enabled encryption, or like logins to it. I never got any more pictures until I turned it off. I wasn't quite sure why that would happen. There's some permissions you can set for user ID, like view or edit, and I had an admin account and I couldn't see any more images. But at least with a live feed, I can show you the masking and how that gets drawn out. So you're essentially moving these dots around. So if something breaks like out here in the street, it'll capture several frames before that. That's why you saw the truck come around the corner. Ideally,
Seconds before and something
yeah.
like that.
Ideally, it would be better to point down at the front door so you can at least see, because I'm not going to see anybody who comes around the house this way. And it's just an experiment right now, just to play with it.
You're basically saying that anytime something moves in those areas, that's when it saves the frames?
Yes.
Oh.
It'll pad it on either side. So if somebody is walking down this sidewalk, it's not going to detect them.
Can you set like just the size of the object anyway? Is there any way to?
No, it's
change
looking
the
for,
sensitivity?
there is some sensitivity. There's like different motion detection algorithms.
You know, I had problems with a system I had set up where when the wind would blow, a piece of trash would look across and turn on.
Yeah. There's a street light right here.
And when the light comes on,
The light comes on, it triggers it. Now, okay, that's fine. It knows it's going to be there. My street light is cycling right now. it turns on and off.
Yeah.
So it kind of collects quite a few events. Before I match this out, a day would produce over 1,000 events. Because of all the stuff happening in the picture frame. People walking, people getting home from work across the street. And obviously you can go into the events area. I'm not really going to have any for today, unfortunately, because the camera was turned off. So there's a little bit of a parking hazard right there.
Do the shadows changing at all set it off? Do you know?
I haven't noticed that.
It probably happens slow enough. It doesn't.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you say, I just want infrared detection, heat detection?
Well, this camera doesn't support that.
Infrared is just how it sees at night. That's all.
Yeah. There's on these nighttime cameras, there's a bunch of infrared LEDs in the front, and they're casting that. I mean, if you look at it, it looks like a bunch of red LEDs.
Do you have a nighttime event?
Um,
I'm curious how good it is.
yeah, let's take a look. I mean, this is like the cheapest webcam, right? In fact, you can actually see the LEDs. I got tape over. Oh, there's people over here walking. Oh, here comes a car. Okay. So, yeah, it's not necessarily the best, but it will pick something off that does it. Thunderstorms, lightning. Yep. It will set that off. But I mean, it's something to play with. Oh, coming home. I would like to have an outdoor forest cam in the backyard away from the house using the wireless portion so that it's looking at the whole back of the house. Like mount it on my shed or something like that and use the wireless.
How do you get power?
I figured I would use a battery with a solar panel because they make solar panels for sheds just to run a light, and if it's producing just enough to keep a small battery charged and the camera running, I mean, that's fine. It's just that you can tell the camera to, like those Foscams, you can say, when you detect motion, broadcast the images, or you can say always broadcast images. And I think that's how they work, because they said if it's always monitoring, it's just going to suck any battery down like crazy. But if it's anywhere like USB voltages or 5 volts, that's easily manageable, or even 12 volts would be better. You don't really have to have the voltage regulator. But yeah, it's fun to play with. Check it out. Try to do a better, here's how the whole thing goes together sometime in the future. I've
This camera is absolute trash. That's the top review.
yeah, but I look here. I look at this. That's what I look for in reviews. Generally, if you read some of these, it's not. It may be part of their network setup, or they don't know how it works. So.
What's the range on one of those? You know?
The motion detection?
No, wireless one.
Oh, well, obviously this one's going to be in-house. The company will sell you larger antennas for high dB gain.
Well, I'll tell you what I want it for. A spotting scope, I shoot.
Yeah.
And a spotting scope is,
Yeah, I know.
I want to build a video spotting scope.
What kind of,
This is what it's for, it's a
How long
cost.
is it be till you start using drones to take out, do your hunting for you?
As soon as I win the lottery, you'll be the first to know.
First.
Now.
I was thinking of something, something like to be the second page.
Okay, I'll take
The
everybody
spotting-
out of the room now because everybody knows.
Tom, your spotting scope has a 1.25-inch diameter for the eyepiece,
Yeah.
and that is a 1.25-inch eyepiece adapter for
Yeah,
USB.
but I don't want to use a spotting scope. I just want to stick a camera all the way down range, right next, right.
Oh.
Because it's just.
Well, you could make directional antenna too,
Yeah, I know.
and that would kind of resolve that. What was that product called, Craig? The Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Oh, Lord. The Wi-Fi.
It was the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That mini Yagi for your laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loaned that to somebody.
Somewhere I've got a Pringles antenna, antenna already set up I can use, so as long as the connector is the same.
You should see the one we have down at the bar.
Did you build it?
Yeah, I made 2 parabolas on the Linksys out of a manila file folder and aluminum foil. Works great. Get all the way outside the front of the bar.
Sounds like Bubba-Tech if I've ever.
Hey, that's how it all works.
You guys ever been to Memphis to their cafeteria?
Uh-uh.
No. I just noticed yesterday I was there and looked up and like they have a freaking antenna. I mean, literally the whole place. I don't know what to worry about. We don't have coverage there for well past the area that you're in.
Maybe it's for capacity.
Could be.
What is it?
I meant that Wi-Fi access there in this hospital.
A long time ago, I was doing some work with my grandfather, who was working with one of the hospitals in town, and they were doing a wireless system install. So this was like 93, 92, around there, and they were using a product that was called Radiax, which was a coax designed as an antenna. So you just ran the cable and you capped the end of it, and the cable became your antenna. So they were doing all sorts of field surveys in the building to determine best placement of the cable in the ceiling. And they had one floor that was just terrible noise in the 2.4. Terrible.
House and
Galley. The galley was stainless steel with microwaves in it. So they would heat up, warm up food, and it was intermittent. So every time they fired up the microwave, they got all sorts of noise on the spectrum.
I thought coax, that was the point of coax, was shielding. So it didn't
Right,
have something
but
like
the
that.
product they were trying to use was a radiating coax, hence Radiax. So instead of having,
It's not really type of coax.
yeah,
It looked like coax.
yeah, so it would have essentially like little holes in it as part of the shielding for the antenna portion too.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was a long time ago though. I don't even know if they make that anymore.
In Bergen, they had a wireless access point, I think even 2 in each room, each patient
Isn't
room.
that crazy?
Yeah. I don't know if it's for security or
Must be
if
for
they,
other things. What are they doing like
wanted,
that?
they had Cisco stock and they wanted to increase their stock value.
The Cisco bought Meraki, didn't they?
Yes.
You were upset about that, I remember. They were pretty good stuff.
Yeah, Meraki has wonderful, absolutely wonderful APs. But, yeah, you just wait and see how Cisco's gonna screw them up.
Oh, they will.
Exactly, I have faith.
It's the Linksys model.
They
Yeah,
buy
you
them.
link
So the, or the flip cam model. I mean, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
They'll buy it. It'll be around for about 2 years, and they'll kill the product.
Hmm.
I don't know if they're necessarily gonna do that, because one of the problems they're having was Cisco's having problems getting into the cloud-based. So I don't think Rocky's gonna go away, but they'll screw it up and make it bad enough that it'll force people back into other things that they sell.
What other options are there? There's Aruba.
Aerohive is a really
Aerohive?
interesting one.
I haven't heard that one.
They've got some really neat products. I
want to see it in operation.
I got one. They
Oh,
sent me one.
that's nice.
Phone is
How
always
big is
a-
it? It's about that big?
It's a small AV.
Okay.
It's a fairly small. It's not any bigger than the Meraki. But I haven't played with it yet. It's still sitting in a box. We haven't had time.
Phone has always had basically a cloud-based management and for access points, FON,
Mm-hmm.
and then Ubiquiti, I think, had one.
The thing that was so nice about Meraki is the level of detail you get from the devices that are attaching to them, to the ease, absolute phenomenal ease. You can turn any idiot loose to set them up. I mean, it's ungodly simple to set these things up. And the beauty of it is when you purchase one, they email you the MAC address. So before you ever get it, you go into your cloud site and go, okay, I need to set this up. Go ahead and use this configuration I've already got for one of the others if you want to.
Yeah.
And apply it to this MAC address as
Apply it
soon
to
as you
this
see
MAC
it.
address. And then, oh, by the way, I'm gonna put it at this place in this building, at this address. So that way I can hand it to the maintenance monkey. Go out, plug it in the wall over there. Jacks it in, it makes its call home, pulls down everything it needs.
Yeah.
You
And
know
the
how
rest of the
many-
network adjusts to that.
Phone did that though several years ago. I'm not saying it's probably as easy as that, but.
That's what surprised me, was how simple it was to do and yet how powerful it was for what you could accomplish. It truly was it's an amazing product if Cisco doesn't screw it up.
They screw everything up.
I know.
And on that note, we'll continue that in the bar. So, thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Once again, Kevin. Really interested in that RC.
Say I don't use Cisco.
Because I'm supposed to be doing something similar in the next week.
I've got two things